Hi there everyone, welcome to Dandelion Delphi Tutorials. Today we're going to look at the Supplementary Paper 2018 question 3. In your final at the end of this year, you could expect a similar question in question 4. So this was quite an interesting question. In question 3.1, we are populating the array game and we are placing dashes in it, and then we are randomly placing hashes around the two-dimensional array to represent planets. The person can select their difficulty level, and depending on their level they will have a certain number of planets. So the lower the level, the more planets there are, so that your chances are higher to select the correct one. And then you also have to display the number of guesses on the panel. Press pause and try it yourself. I'll show you the rest just now. So the last bit here is just to enable the button and make sure that your rich edit components are cleared, and also note that the planets on the game board should not be visible to the player. In other words, you shouldn't display the planets. Here is the example of output the moment that you click the Start Game button. So there was an array provided, array game, and it contains 9 rows and 9 columns. You could have started with the column for loop as well, it wouldn't matter. We're just filling them all with dashes. I created a display procedure here so that I can call it in the other buttons. This is now my display procedure, so I'm clearing the game board and then I'm looping through each row. I'm starting with a row because I'm displaying in a rich edit. So we're displaying row by row, so therefore it's a row question. You have to start with a for loop for the row. I'm initializing each string that I'm going to display as an empty string every row, and then I'm looping through my columns. If the item in the array is a $sign, now this $sign I have used in button 3.2. If the person guessed correctly, I would replace that item with a $sign. Then I'm going to display a hash. If it's not a $sign, I'm going to display dashes. This will also prevent now that I'm not displaying the answer of where the positions are of the hashes in my display area. And then before I loop again, I'm just displaying S line. So according to the level of the game that the person wants to play, I'm going to use my item index to determine the number of planets that I have to place in this two-dimensional array. And the level 1 is 50. So let's say the person clicked on level 1. We had to create 50 planets. So my item index will be 0. So I am deducting 0 from 50. So therefore I will create 50 planets. Then if the person clicked on 1, that would be 40. Because 50 minus 1 times 10 will give me 40 planets. And then the last one would be 30 planets, and now I'm multiplying the item index with 10, so that would be 2 times 10, and my I number will be 30. I had to place these planets randomly, and I also had to make sure that I don't put a planet in an item of an array twice. So I can only place a planet in the array if there isn't one in there already. Now I have to use my while loop because I don't know how many times I will randomly have to select a value to ensure that I have placed all the planets. So I'm just using a while loop while the number is greater than 0. I continue to randomly pick a row and a column using my random range. So this will pick a random number from 1 to 9. And then if that item is still empty, then I will deduct 1 from I number. So now I number will be 1 less. And then I place the planet into that item that I randomly selected. And so my while loop will continue until the last time it will loop is when I number is 1 and a planet has been placed successfully in my two-dimensional array. I suggest that in an exam you use your 10 minutes reading time to read this question, and that's why I knew that I needed 2 global counters. The one is counting the number of correct guesses and the other one is counting the number of guesses in total. And the number of guesses in total has to be displayed in the panel, and I also had to enable this other button. This is now an example of button 3.2 and the output. So the person gets a maximum number of guesses of 5. So that is displayed in this panel as the number of guesses. If they guess incorrectly and the number of total guesses are 5, they then lose. To win the game, they have to guess 2 planets correctly within the 5 guesses in order for them to win. I think this was done just to speed up the testing because guessing 50 correctly would have taken you a long time. The person is going to use these 2 combo boxes for the input, and if they guess incorrectly, you are going to display that row and column they guessed in this rich edit for the incorrect guesses. If they do guess correctly, like they've done in this instance, there's just one value that was guessed correctly, that will be displayed in here. But you have to replace the value in the array with another symbol. It doesn't have to be the dollar symbol I used, any other symbol apart from a dash or a hash. Here is an example of the person winning the game. They only guessed twice and both of these guesses were correct. So they found 2 planets within the 5 allocated guesses that they have. So here is your chance to try question 3.2. Read carefully and try it yourself. So here we have been asked to get the input from the user for the combo box. That would be our rows and our columns. Remember that your combo boxes will start with an index of 0, but your 2-dimensional arrays have the indexes 1 to 9. In other words, if you just take your item index plus 1, you will be at the correct position in your arrays. If the planet is correctly guessed, then you have to update the display area. So you want to display a hash for the correct planets guessed. And you also need to update your array in order to use the display procedure that I used. And then you also have to update the number of guesses, and they are allowed a maximum of 5 guesses. And if they guess incorrectly, you need to display the row and column values in the rich edit. And here's just a note on how to win. 2 planets guessed correctly within your allocated 5 guesses. Remember when they say you have to display in a message box, you can just use a show message whether they won or lost. The play button must then also be disabled once the game is over. Just remember that due to the random value selected for the positions of the planets, your output would not look exactly like the examples in the screenshot. So here's my memo for question 3.2. I'm getting the input for the row and the column, and I'm just adding 1 to the index, as that would now correspond with the rows and columns of my arrays. My I count is keeping track of the number of guesses. And if they guessed correctly for the row and the column of where there was a planet indicated by the hashes, I'm replacing that item with my $sign. And then I'm just redisplaying so that it would display the hash when the person has selected a correct value. I'll also now increment my I correct so that I can test whether they win the game or not. If they have not selected a hash, then I will display in the incorrect rich edit the row and the column that they selected. I've also now updated my panel with the total number of guesses, which is stored in iCount. My nested if statement here is determining whether I've won or lost the game. So if the person had 2 correct guesses, you didn't have to say greater or equal to 2. It could have been just equal to 2. And the number of total guesses was still less or equal to 5, then they have won the game. And then I also had to disable this play button. However, if they then reached the counter was 5, in other words, I correct was not equal to 2, but my counter already reached 5, it means that they have lost the game. This is now your time to practice 3.3. Press pause and I'll show you the rest of the output just now. The first example of output is when the planets were placed, but the person didn't actually play the game at all. and they just clicked on Reveal Planets. This example here is if the player won the game within the allocated number of guesses, they guessed 2 planets correctly, you're now going to display the other character that you used. In my instance, I also used the $sign when the planets are revealed. All the other players will now also be displayed, but still as hashes because they have not been guessed correctly yet. So basically here you are displaying your 2-dimensional array, but you can't make use of the display procedure I had because that will only show the hashes instead of my $signs where the person guessed correctly. So my revealing of the planets is very simple. Clear the rich edit, loop. Remember to start with a row because we're displaying in a rich edit. Always start with a row there. Initialize my string and build my string with the actual values in array game, which will now hold $signs if they guessed correctly and the hashes for where the planets were stored. And then just display that line. So that was another 2-dimensional array question, grade 12s. Thank you very much for watching Dandelion Delphi tutorials. Please leave some comments if there's things that you would like me to explain. And also, if you need more information about 2-dimensional arrays, that would be book 3, and 1-dimensional arrays are explained in book 2. Hope to see you soon.